One. Good morning, Quin Brewington. How are you?
Good morning. I'm wonderful. I'm blessed. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited about this occasion. I had a chance to attend the second act seminar, and that
Yes,
was my first
ma'am.
time learning of you. So I'm looking forward to diving deeper
Okay.
into who Quinn is and where this vision came from, which is much needed, but where did it stem from? So I want to welcome you, but then let me also shift and pivot and thank and welcome all of our guests. You're listening to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and want to thank the, Sparkman Pathway to Careers, also KSTL 690, Jubilee, and Covenant Exchange LLC for their support regarding this platform. Want to thank you, each of you, for tuning in. You could be doing anything else, but I promise you, you won't be disappointed because we're going to learn a whole bunch from Miss Quinn this morning. And I also want to invite you to lean into what this platform is for. It's all about leadership, leadership excellence, and leadership accidents. And we need both along our journey to be successful. And I am just looking forward to this conversation, really, which is in the nick of time for many of us who have reached the age of 40. That used to be so old, but I am a part of that group and actually very proud to be a part of that group. And our
Awesome.
guest today, Quin Brewington, had a vision to send a message. And then not only a message, but also equipped. You know, I'm all about equipping people on this platform with tools, resources, and strategies. And let me just tell you a little bit about our guest. Quin Brewington is an award winning writer and content producer based in Tampa, Florida. Send us some sunshine here in the Midwest. We need it. She is also founder of the Sister Lady Girl blog, an online space for women over 40 to explore and embrace what growing older in the modern world really means. And in 2021, which I love this, more than 500 women registered to attend her first ever virtual conference. More than 500. I was blessed to be one. The second Act Summit, an unforgettable day of inspiration, information, and insight cultivated specifically for Gen X women who want to feel more visible, more vital, more relevant as they enter, explore, and experience the second act of life, aka the middle years. Following the success of the summit, Quinn launched the Second Act Summit Society, a digital community that encourages women over 40 to own their age by educating, empowering, and equipping them with actual and actionable tools and resources amid aimed at helping make the next phase of life the best phase of life. Welcome, Lady Quinn.
Thank you, Miss Nikki. I am so happy to be here. I cannot tell you. And thank you so much for coming to the summit. I'm still just over the moon about how that all came out, and it just was a true blessing to me to see all the women show up. It was wonderful. So thank you
From
for
all
coming.
over. Yeah, no, it was an
Yeah.
honor. And how I found out, because honestly, as you know, I I have attended like 1,000, we attend 1,000 conferences and it's like, okay, one more.
Mhm.
And but at the same time, this goes to prove how niching down, and we can get into that, but niching down really matters because it'll resonate with certain people.
Right.
And I think the timing could not have been more perfect, but it was through social media. I
Mhm.
Someone reposted that we're both connected to, and I don't even know the person that I'm connected to that we're both connected to seriously, but the power of social media, like you just never
Yes.
know where it will land. And I'm like, this sounds very interesting
Mhm.
because I have hosted conferences as well, and not virtual, and in
It's
a
hard to
different.
get people to show up, isn't it?
It
It's very
is.
difficult. Yeah.
Whether it's free, whether it's a small, donation, whether it's a social responsibility type of arm attached to it, all of that.
Mhm.
So what made you to jump out on the limb to say, hey, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and to take a stab at this also?
Yeah, well, this all started for me back when I was 47. I am now 51. And
Yeah.
the vision was dropped into my spirit because at work, I was being asked to do things that I really did not know how to do. So I consider myself a lifelong learner and I love a good online course. And so I found myself doing course after course after course. And I was like, everybody is saying different things. I'm getting confused, and there's got to be a different way.
Okay.
So, um, 2 years later, it just so happened that I was on social media and I saw an ad for the new house school at Syracuse. And I had always wanted to go there. I'm a graduate of Florida A&M journalism program, woohoo.
Awesome.
But I initially wanted to go to the new house school because it has such a great reputation for journalists. And so I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I applied, I got in. Thank God I graduated. So now I have my master's degree in communications at the ripe old age of 51. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I said, what am I going to do with this newfound knowledge? And so it just so happened that in my thesis, I was doing research on older influencers like myself because, I see all these women in their 20s and 30s, and they are doing it. They are fearless. They are going for it. And I was like, I want some of that. And so, like, how do I do that? And so I was really on a whim that I got into the influencer space on social media. And so I wanted to work with brands. I wanted to say, hey, we are more than menopause, even though that is an important part of our experience as older women, but we're so much more than that. And so I wanted to show people that we are so much more than that. And so I ended up entering a contest. See, I'm good for, doing things on a fluke. And so I ended up
Oh, wow.
applying for an influencer opportunity. I didn't even know who it was with at that point. It just said a major brand is looking to pull together basically what I liken to be like a street team of influencers. And it didn't matter your platform size or anything like that. So I applied, I got accepted, and I found out that it was Ford Motor Company. And so Ford
Oh,
Motor Company is the company that ended up sponsoring my event. And so it just kind of happened that I was sitting here like we all are doing our day to day jobs during the pandemic, looking at these screens all day. And I was like, I need to do something different. I need to do something different with my life. This can't be my life. And so a friend of mine said, hey, have you ever talked to Ford about doing something a little deeper than what you're doing right now? Because, I would blog every now and again about a new car that was coming out or, go to events and this kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And so I threw things back to my thesis. And I was like, I could really bring my thesis to life. So the Second Act Summit is my master's thesis come to life. And so it all kind of worked in a circle, and Ford was really wonderful. I actually sat down and did a pitch, the first pitch of my life. And it was based on all of the research that I did for my thesis when I learned about the fact that, when women get to be in their 40s, they start to feel invisible, they start to feel underappreciated. Even the media kind of tends to skip over this group of women. They focus on new moms, and then we're all the way to, grandmoms. And, it's like, hey, wait a minute, for those of us in the middle, we have a story to tell as well. And so that's why I wanted to bring the Second Act Summit to life. to hear
Oh
those
my
stories.
gosh. So this is amazing because um, we're getting to know each other in this space. And so
Yes.
I'm an educator, I'm in higher ed, I'm all about learning.
All right.
I too am in an online course every month.
Yay.
I challenge myself one a month, at least one a month, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's just a webinar, like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been doing also those courses like through edX. Shout out to they're not a sponsor, but shout out to them because I use that platform.
Yeah.
Um, then also, how often do I hear, even as an administrator in higher ed now, what am I going to do with this stuff that I'm learning in higher ed? And I too was a late bloomer in regards to going back to school, even for bachelor's. And so now I've been in school forever. I'm still in school now. But what's funny is that my research is also on women who are in the pipeline for leadership, but stuck in the pipeline.
Mm.
So, what kind of development do we need
Yes.
to
Yes.
have gender equity
Mm-hmm.
when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to leadership? And so it complements the work because that why, in regards to how you not stumbled, how you were living it,
Yes.
and you just kind of took what you were living and experiencing, those lived experiences, and made that phenomenon, your thesis, but also
Mm-hmm.
an event. Oh my God, that is just so amazing because I'm thinking about like, oh my gosh, so yeah, okay, what you're doing is not crazy. So thank you for that. But
Oh,
then
you're
also,
welcome.
but also to those who are listening, I always, and who are familiar with this platform, I always say to those who are like, I'm trying to figure it out. Honestly, you're proof. You're already doing what you've been called to do.
Absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
how do you begin to lean into it? And
Mm-hmm.
so leaning into it for you, that had to be quite vulnerable. And so walk us through that experience.
Well, again, it really started with the smallest of sparks, right?
Okay.
And I was like, I really don't know how to do what I'm being asked to do, but I can't show that. You know, I had been in a job for a decade at that point, and I wasn't moving. I was just staying the course and, just kind of writing it out. And I kind of came to the conclusion that, this is not okay with me. It was kind of like I was being put out to pasture very slowly. It was like, you're still a part of our herd, but we just gonna move you over here ever so slightly. And so to me, I started to see that I was becoming less and less vital to my team. I was always being told, you have great skills, you're a writer. I mean, that's what I do. I have a journalism degree. I've always loved the art of writing because I really do think that it is an art, to get people to persuade people to do what you would like them to do through the written word. But I felt like, what else do I have to offer? What can I identify that no one else on this team is doing and I can grab and take it for myself? So at that point, I was really doing a lot of writing for our social media platforms. And I noticed that no one else was doing that. And so when I went back to school for Syracuse, um, they had three tracks. One track was for journalism, the other track was for PR, and the last track was for advertising. I have experience in PR and journalism. I did not have experience in advertising. And so, another thing that I learned too is that Black people are not really represented in advertising as a whole, but that's a whole different subject. But for this conversation, I decided to pursue the advertising track. And so, once I started learning about the ins and outs of advertising, which is supremely fascinating, I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, those media buys that we're having, we're getting jacked. So we need to figure out our own plan. And so that's kind of how I went from being a little bit what I say invisible to being a little more invincible. Because when you have knowledge that other people need and want, it makes it much harder for them to put you out to pasture. So, if there was any advice that I would offer to any woman who is, who's, resonates with my story, it would be that, find that thing that nobody else is doing, and it's there.
Yeah.
Find that thing that nobody else is doing, and you become really, really good at it. So that, people are like, oh, okay, well, if I need that, then I have to go to you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
As well as we didn't even know we needed that
Hmm.
until you brought
Exactly.
it up. But one thing I love about, I was like, oh my God, so much you said resonates also with me. Understanding that you didn't, which I am a true advocate of, you didn't rely on the company to reposition you, even though you were feeling some kind of way. You
Hmm.
took it upon yourself, because I think there is some self authorship, some self efficacy, all of that we have to also own. At, we're speaking really to a targeted audience of,
Hmm.
women, and I say men, men is a part, they're a part of this conversation, but women 40 and older,
Hmm.
where these things, they really do begin to happen in regards to, as you mentioned, in feeling invisible, feeling, am I still valued?
Right.
But a lot of that is internal, and we have to own that.
Hmm.
But take your strategy, which was, so what do I want? What do I want to do?
Yes.
What's, if I'm going to stay here where I am? Okay, how can I show up greater? How can I
Hmm.
shine brighter and not just let the light go out?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, for me, I always say I want to start with the ending, right?
Mhm. Love
Everybody
that.
thinks that I'm weird because I do read the last chapter in books before I read them
Or
because
paragraph,
I,
yes.
yeah,
I
I mean,
didn't
I just want to know, like, how do you get from the beginning of the book to that last chapter where you're just like wrapping everything up. I just find the process very, very fascinating. So I always like to start with the end in mind. And that's what I did when I started thinking about what I wanted to do. Um, because a lot of women have talked to me and they're like, well, I don't know what comes next. I don't know what I should be doing. And that's valid. Um, I was there. And it's a really difficult space to be in. And I realized that, at that point, there's quite a bit of self reflection that needs to occur because I was really in my feelings for a long time. And
what do you unpack that for us? What do you mean
mhm,
you were in your feelings?
I mean, I was blaming everybody
Okay.
for the stagnant state that I was in.
Okay.
And it started to manifest itself externally in that I started to live the stereotype of the angry Black woman. And I
Okay.
did not want to be her because at the heart of me, I am not that person. And I said to myself, this whole experience is changing me for the worse. And I just did not want anyone or anything to have that kind of dominion over me. And
Mhm.
so I started to ask myself a lot of questions, and I had to come to some hard truths about myself. And so once I did that, I said, okay, what do you ultimately want to do with this life that you have been given? Because it truly is a gift.
Yeah.
And so I said, I want to do something that is helpful, impactful to other women
Mhm.
like me. What can I do? A lot of times we hear all this stuff about living the best life, right? We've heard Oprah say that over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, Oprah, I want to live my best life too. And I just didn't know what that meant.
For you.
When
It meant for
it
you.
meant for
Right.
me, meant for anyone,
Yeah.
because living my best life, it's like a nebulous thing, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like if you don't really identify something, like I talked about before, you have to identify that thing. You can't just say, I want to do this and then expect for it to materialize. at least for me. I have to like really see it in order for me to go after it. So living my best life means what? And I literally sat down and I started to free write. What does living my best life mean to me? And so I wrote things down like connection, collaboration, sisterhood, and all of these wonderful words. And I was like, okay, this is starting to form into something. This is starting to become something. And so we were all stuck in our homes. And I know that, the connection piece was going to be a little tricky.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started, thinking about, I could do an online conference, but I didn't want it to be just an online conference. I wanted it to be an experience
Okay.
for the women that came because honestly, you giving me that much time from your life is a gift. And I don't take that lightly. And so, if you're going to come to my conference, you are truly going to get an experience. And I feel like we were able to accomplish that given the um, emails that I got, the direct messages, and just people reaching out and just
Being
saying
here,
hi
right?
and being here. So I'm really grateful that I was able to kind of bring that vision to life. And this is my version of living my best life.
Oh my gosh. And I love the fact that you say, sit down, take ownership, sit down, reflect,
Hmm.
write it out, but you also took action. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure there were many things by this being your first virtual conference. There were many things that you did not know, but even in some of the language you just used, which was connection, collaboration, that's what was needed to pull it all together. Because the other thing is that we think we have to just be the one, the superwoman to figure it all out.
Hmm.
And we get stuck at probably reflection and writing things out and maybe even the visualization of it, but we don't move to action because it's kind of
Right.
like, how am I going to do that? Or as my sister friend and I talk about the committee, who do you think you are that you
Hmm.
think you can pull this off? And how do you think, how you don't have the resources, you don't have the reach for the people, like you have all this going on, but you
Hmm.
pressed in and pushed past all of that. And that's
I
amazing.
did. I did. And I will share another thing with you as well. No, I did not have the reach as a blogger on these infinite internet streets. And so one of the things that I do really well is I research. And
Taking the strength, using the
that,
strength.
that is something that I have learned is I enjoy it. I'm fascinated to learn new things. And so I sat down and I started with the end in mind again. And I said to myself, you're going to have a really strong keynote speaker. And you're going to have someone who's really strong because naturally I am an introvert. And so I felt like, can you pull off 4 hours of hosting an event by yourself? And again, I had to be honest with myself and I said, no, that is not my strong that's not a strong suit for me. And so that's when I brought in a co-host. And so I started thinking you're really going to need a strong keynote speaker. And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine and she said you should get Tabitha Brown. And that committee started talking to me. I was like, Tabitha Brown ain't gonna talk to me. What? Be quiet. What?
See?
And
See?
so
It happens.
I ended up telling myself, at the end of the day, what would it hurt? Right. So I ended up writing my pitch to Tabitha Brown and I sent it to her people. Never heard back, which is great because I never in my mind thought that I would hear back. But the great thing that came out of that is I wrote the pitch and it forced me to sit down and think through my ask and to also think through, you know, people don't generally do things for you unless you can show them what they will get in return. And it's not a bad thing. It's just people. That's how we naturally work.
Yeah. And that's what she does.
Right.
So
Right. And so I was like, I'm the little person here looking for something, and I didn't really have a lot to offer her, but the exercise helped me craft my pitch. And then I was like, oh, I don't need Tabitha Brown. I need someone who has the same impact on their audience as Tabitha Brown has. Someone who has,
interesting.
a very passionate message, who has a very loyal following, who can get people really hyped up about just being over 40 and being fabulous.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you, no lie, I was scrolling through Instagram looking for someone, and Natasha Maine came up into my feed. I don't know Natasha.
So that's who I'm connected to. And I had just started, literally like just started maybe that week or the week before, because I had and that was because I was getting my car something done to my car, flipping through a magazine, and she was in. I was like, what is, so I went on IG because I'm horrible with social media, but I'm learning I have to be a little more present.
Yes.
And but oh my gosh, so okay, there's so much in this strategy that you you mentioned that has got me so excited, because you took the pitch as an exercise, a learning opportunity, a
Mm-hmm.
teachable moment
Yes.
to get it all out, to get that ask out. And the pressure, I'm sure, because of that ask and who you were asking, caused you to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get this
Absolutely.
language, massage this language, but then it caused you to probably lean back a little bit to say, is this in alignment with the goal, the
Right.
outcomes that I'm wanting from this experience?
Right. Right.
No
And
response. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
No response, which was fine, which I think that is a amazing lesson for all of
Mhm.
us, to understand that the process is key. Not just the
Absolutely.
outcome, but the process sometimes is actually the best part,
Mm-hmm.
to equip us with what we need to move forward and to strengthen an area that we may not even know we're as weak at. But then you shift to with the thought, who has the impact? See, I'm loving this. Who has the impact that can still fall in alignment with the vision and the outcome
Yes.
and the experience? I don't know who that is, but let me just scroll down IG.
Let me just scroll down IG, and I saw one of those wonderful videos that she does.
Hello, good
The
morning,
take your
Queen.
time and good morning, Queen.
Queen.
And I said, who, what? And so I just became fascinated
But you
with
had
her.
no connection.
I had no connection. I found out later on that we have a mutual connection, but I would never have known that. Um, but I started looking at her, and I didn't reach out to her immediately because, again, I needed to make sure that what she was saying was in alignment with what I wanted
Yes.
for my event. And I think that's sometimes where we get a little lost sometimes, when we're putting on something. I was talking to someone, and I'm very soft spoken, or have been told that I'm very soft spoken. And so I ended up having to tell someone, don't mistake my soft voice for
Yeah.
being soft. I know what I want, and I see it in my brain. It's as if, I tell my husband this all the time, it's as if God said, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to write this out. And you do this and you do this. I'm not going to tell you where it's going to come from,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you along the way, you're going to hit this milestone, you're going to hit this milestone. And that's how it has literally unfolded the entire from the time that I entered grad school to now, it has just unfolded drip by drip by drip.
Wow.
And I have no idea what I'm doing. But
But you know what? That's honest. And I
yeah.
think that's the thing. And I love the fact that you coined this the second act. And the second act understanding that you don't I think we show up more equipped, more in most cases more confident because we
Mhm.
have those experiences. Um, but it doesn't mean we're clear because it's something new.
Right.
I was reading, I just wrapped up a book, The Practice by Seth Godin, and I've mentioned this. And he talks about the practice, and the practice is us doing what we need to do.
He's
What
so
the
good.
call, yes, what the call is, and
Yeah.
being present with that call. But the
Mhm.
practice is where we get lost because
Yeah.
we start it, we stop it, we stop it, we start it, then we're not consistent. People become um, we finally get people to understand like we're serious about it, but then we don't show up with
Right.
the practice meaning that gift, product, that service, whatever it is that we're giving to the world.
hmm
All have something,
hmm
and we have to learn that the practice is because we don't, if it's something new, we don't know. And I
Right.
think, I know for me anyway, can get paralyzed sometimes in moving forward because it
You're
is a
scared.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he even brings up what we hear so much about these days, imposter syndrome.
hmm
He says everybody deals with imposter syndrome if
Right.
it's new, male
hmm
or female. And I think it's just navigating it probably is where we show up a little different.
hmm
But to hear him say, like, if you're doing something new, you're not gonna know. Just to hear how it landed that time. But so what do? Not do it? Because you're not gonna know, you know?
You're not gonna know, but that's when you grab people that do know.
I love
If you don't know, grab people that know. And
without fear that they're
you're
gonna
always
take
gonna
my
be,
stuff, right?
listen, you're always gonna have fear, always, especially if it's something new. But your charge, as I call it, is to get past that fear and do what you need to do. Because at the end of the day, I always say we all put our pants on one leg at a time. There is no person on this planet that is better than me, or, we're all people. And so,
We're all humans, right?
um, we're all people. And so, even Elon Musk, with all of his amazing success, he had to start somewhere, and he had to find the people that could help him get his vision.
Yeah,
And
visualize it.
so, no matter where we are, that's what we have to do. We have to find the people that are willing to help us. And most people that I reached out to, they were honored to help. And I think that's where we kind of like have, I don't know, some trepidation because we feel like, oh, Tabitha Brown would never talk to me. I'm nobody. But I mean, you're somebody. And every one of us, I don't care what you do, where you are, what your station is, everybody has gift. And it is up to us to figure out what it is, number one, and how we're going to use it.
Yeah.
Because, we can have gifts all day, but if we sit on them, what's the point?
And there's
And I
somebody
really,
waiting.
yeah, and one of the things that I had in mind for my end was I wanted to make an impact. When it's all said and done, I want to feel like I truly did something that I enjoyed doing,
Mhm.
and doing something that will leave a legacy for my children, and do something that really impacts people in a positive way.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. And then like I said earlier, niched down, because this could have gone a number of different ways. Even in our conversation, But I think there's also a lesson even in that, knowing your audience, knowing that what
Absolutely.
you have is not for everyone,
Mhm,
but at the same time it is for someone.
mhm.
And there's so many articles that I found as I was doing my research for our time together about women over 40. And so that while there's a need, there's still and there's resources and there's articles, there's still very little conversation really on, in the mainstream about this group.
Yeah.
And so there's an article, bestlifeonline.com,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
they bring
mhm.
up 40 things every woman over 40 needs to know. And it's everything
I
from
love that article.
perfection isn't necessary.
Mhm.
The power of self-talk that we've talked about that is needed. Winning isn't everything, and I always say, for me, I learned how to redefine what that means.
Mhm.
There's more to life than a perfect body. Aging is inevitable. How to have real friendships.
Oh, yes.
Gossip, realizing it is cheap. When to take no for an answer, which is kind of opposite of what we were raised, but
Mhm.
when not to take no as an answer. Style is subjective, and we understand that too.
Yes, ma'am.
Small problems should stay small. Don't believe everything you think. Little things are what make life great, and I could go on and on. What
Yeah, 'cause
have
there's 40 things on the list,
40
right?
things, and then it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. But what are some things that resonate for you, um, especially after doing this conference and getting the feedback, getting the calls? Um, what resonates with you in regards to what's important for those that group?
Yeah, I mean, my platform is based on, three pillars: health, wealth, and self. And these are, at a macro level, these are the things that women in our 40s are really, really thinking about, right? And so in my research, I found that, for women in our demographic, there really are like 9 core things that are important to us. And that is health and wellness, our financial stability, our passions, our career and our work, our relationships, our personal style, um, love and respect. What's the other one? Leaving a legacy, I mentioned earlier. And then, just having, I'm trying to read this here and put on my glasses. Yes. Just having a higher purpose for doing the things that we do. And those are kind of like the 9 core things that no matter who you talk to in this demographic, there's some level of that going on, you know. And so that's what I found in my research. And those are the things that I speak to. And so the next level of, Second Act Summit is, really creating a platform
Okay.
that will explore all of those things and give women a safe space where they can go talk about those things. Um, it was funny that one of the things that really resonated with me from the Second Act Summit was how much we want to be heard, particularly if we have an expertise that we are trying to get into the world. And there's really no place that exists for us to do that unless we create it on our own. And again, if you're someone who doesn't think you have the resources or doesn't know where to start, that's going to be tough and you're going to stay stuck. And so I don't want that for anyone. I don't want people to experience the type of stuff that I experienced in my mid 40s when I was just feeling like, ugh, there has to be something different that I want. And so the platform that I'm building now for women will give you actual and actionable tools to help you create the life that you're going to love living.
Yeah.
And again, living your best life, that sounds great. And I love the whole concept of it. But I want to show people how.
And I applaud you for that, because how many times do we go to conferences? How many times have we sat in classes in the past, what, 12, 13, 14 months behind a screen
Mm-hmm.
with another getting, I think that's the gap that I even myself um, had to push through, because I know one thing for me has been accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Having that community, that sisterhood, even some from the brotherhood, to be able to share, be vulnerable, to but also to be held accountable. You said you wanted to do fill in the blank,
Yes.
and I'm expecting you to deliver on that. And it's not so much that, we look at it as a punitive, punishment type that comes, but no, that encouragement, that inspiration. And I
Mm-hmm.
think community is such of what you're building. That's what I sensed in regards to, because even the topics were very unique
Mm-hmm.
to a women's conference that that I've attended in past, or even hosted myself, to where it was more, these are some, we're going to give you a little bit of background, but we're going to focus on strategy and tools. And you should be able to take this information and go make it happen, at least get started,
Yep.
to pivot in those areas you need to pivot, enhance what you need to enhance, begin what you've not begun
Yep.
so far. And no excuses, because afterwards you even were able to get a packet
Yes.
of all
Exactly.
the resources.
Exactly.
So I think you're in a very sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, everything has come together really nicely. And, I think the beautiful part of what is happening now is that I'm going through all of these things that I have never been through before. I've never thought about before. Um, and I want to take my audience along with me to show them, you know,
Love
I
this.
don't know everything, but here's what I'm doing right now. And if it works out, sweet. If it doesn't, then we're going to learn a lesson. And we're going to take that lesson, we're going to pivot, and we're going to apply it. Pivot and apply, pivot and apply. And that's kind of where I am right now. I still work full time. I'm doing this as well, but I find that I'm so energized by what happened at the Second Act Summit, and I'm so encouraged by the wonderful involvement in our private face group. We've got over 100 women in that group, and I'm looking to grow it even more, looking to give them even more value. So that's the next phase of the Second Act Summit. And of course, we're going to start planning for the next one because can't stop now, right? So yeah,
So,
things are
so
good.
do you think that as things begin to ease due to the pandemic, you would still have virtual opportunities, or do you see it all coming together in space, face to face?
I see both.
Okay.
And that is kind of the platform that I'm working on right now. I can't overlook the fact that there were women who came to the Second Act Summit from Australia, from South Africa. I cannot overlook that. And so I recognize that no matter where we are physically, um, as women in this demographic, we all share certain things as part of this sisterhood. And so I don't want to do anything that is going to prevent someone who really needs some help, who really needs some encouragement, who really needs that support. I'm not going to do anything that will make her feel like she can't get it. So those are the things that we're working on right now. I always like to say we, because I don't know who else is going to be working with me, but I'm I'm a believer in you put it out there, you put your wishes into the universe, and eventually me will become a we. And so I just like to speak things into existence, and that's part of how I kind of get in the zone. Because it is very easy to become discouraged. How am I going to get the money for this? How am I going to, create a platform when I know nothing about tech? Um,
Oh,
that's okay.
but that is so good. And then going back to what you said, starting with the end in mind. I love that
Hmm.
because it's like here, just put it out there, and draw the picture, let God color it in. So
Absolutely.
he will
Yes.
pick what's needed to create the finished art.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh. So what next for Quinn? Because you have all of this amazing things going on, and I love that you brought up the fact that you are working and also doing all this magic on the other side of the day.
Hmm.
But it intersects. I can sense where it intersects. However, a lot of people may think, you've got to give up one to do the other. I know I found I did for a couple years,
Hmm.
just go full entrepreneurship, which was great. I realized I needed the challenge because for me, my job is my paid internship. They
Hmm.
keep me sharp. They keep me with showing up with stretch assignments. It challenges me, but it makes me better with my hard work, the things I'm called to do.
Right.
And so, and then back to that alignment to where an intersection between what I do, you know, in higher ed versus what I do like here on this platform, which is just a virtual classroom. You're
Right.
here to guest lecture, to the class of the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, a lot of people do, and I was one of those too that felt like, oh, I need to jump out here and quit my job. And I've been down that road too, where, I had a very supportive spouse who said, yeah, whatever you need to do, we'll just figure it out. And so I did try that for a couple of years where I was, doing freelance work, and I learned a lot. I saw things that, I always tell my daughter, nothing is for nothing. And so, you know, I ended up having to go back into, formal corporate America, which wasn't a bad thing,
Mhm.
but I just wasn't ready at that point to be an entrepreneur. There were so many things that I did not know. And so I needed to give myself time and space in order to do the entrepreneurial thing the way that I did it. My entrepreneurial journey looks different from someone else's. And if you can get out there and do it, I would totally encourage you. But my thing is, once I make the leap, if I make the leap, I want to be able to sustain it. I want to be able to see that end in mind. And my end may be 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, and how am I walking that back? What do those steps look like? And
Mhm.
so I just wanted to give myself the opportunity to plan it out without having that dual pressure of knowing I need to make it happen for my family. We, in addition to everything else, we have a daughter with, profound disabilities. She has a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. And, I think all of this kind of started when I said, in a few years, she's going to be 22. And here in Florida, they can't go to school anymore. They can't go to school. And so I was like, what are we going to do? I'm not going to put her in a home or anything like that. She's going to be with us in our home. And so I had to think about, what does that look like? Where am I going to be when she hits that age, and how are we going to handle this? So all of this really started with her in mind. You know, "Oh, how am I going to provide for
Yes.
my baby? What am I going to do for my baby?" And so that's how
And
this all came out.
Quinn, I applaud you for adding that part of your story and your truth back to even when we first began our time here together, in understanding all that you mentioned that women over 40 have to confront.
Mhm.
And yes, while we were just talking about dual rolling it within the workplace and entrepreneurship, and we're still trying and still educating ourselves, you've brought in another element, which is one we all have to deal with regardless, which is life.
Yes.
And that's family,
Mhm.
unexpected things that may come along, and unexpected, but God equips us and gives us what we need
Yes, he does.
to pull through successfully. But you're navigating all of this and still showing up to make it happen.
Yes.
Sister, I applaud you.
Thank you.
I applaud you. In so many ways, I'm trying to hold them back because
None
that's
of
the
it is by
reality.
myself.
That's
None
the
of it is by myself.
yeah.
Like I said, at the summit, you cannot do, you cannot be successful. You cannot move to the next step. You cannot on your own. You have to have people who are willing to come with you, who are willing to believe in your vision, who are willing to support you and help you. I have an incredibly supportive spouse. Um, he's an incredibly good dad and supportive dad. And I don't think that, a lot of my kooky ideas of like, honey, I want to do this. And he's like, okay. And so having that support has been,
Even in the house, even in the
even
house.
within the house, has been integral to giving me the confidence to even pursue it.
Yeah.
When I said that I wanted to go back to school, we have to pay for that. And so,
It's also a time. It's a time commitment.
yes,
Also,
time commitment it was all the things when I went back to school. I had no idea, but the only thing that I knew was my knowledge was 30 years old, and I needed an update. I needed a refresh. I needed a
wow,
reboot.
that's a very
And
interesting way of phrasing that.
yeah, yeah. If you have an appliance, you're not going to stick with an appliance for 30 years. So, give yourself the permission to do what you need to do
Wow.
to refresh, you know, and you just never know what's going to come out of it. I did not go into grad school thinking that I would end up doing the Second Next Summit. That's not what that was all about. I went in thinking, gosh, I need to get my skills on par with what I'm being asked to do at work. So I actually walked out of there, um, you know, not only learning that and being able to change the trajectory of my work life,
Yeah.
but also changed the trajectory of my personal life as well. And so, it's just been a huge win for me.
What one thing would you do over if you were to go back 12 months?
I think that I would do a little more um, research and talk to a lot more people in terms of like sponsors and getting people on board, because the more money that you have, the more reach you have as well. And I think that, I limited myself. Ford was great and they have been great. They continue to be great. I could not have asked for a better sponsor. Um, but I think that, even now going forward, I'm starting to think about, who fits with this and how can they fit. So just giving myself the time to think about, not only the women that I'm serving, but also the brands that I want to work with. I
Okay.
said early on, we are much more than menopause.
Yeah.
And so my mission is to show brands who we are and how you can support us.
You need us, right?
Yeah, you need us. So that's where if I had anything different to do, I would probably kind of look at that a little bit more and expand that a little bit more.
Okay. Now, those who are listening, you can find out so much more. You can, and women who are 40 and older can join the community by going to SisterLadyGirl.com and getting signed up, get subscribed, scroll all the way down so that you can join the community and at least get the newsletters. And then once you get plugged into there, to give you more insight. The blog is out there. Some resources are out there, and you can get totally locked in. I salute you, my sister. I am a fan of the work that you're doing. Know that this platform is here to be of support. And we will make some noise in this region in the Midwest, and to our listening audience abroad. As you begin to expand, do not hesitate to reach out this way. I'm looking forward to staying connected as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, my sister. I really appreciate you. And I do appreciate the fact that we showed up in our beige and with our red lips. I love it. I love it. We are here.
Yes. And so we have, again, at SisterLadyGirl.com to get more information, but also to get connected. And as we wrap up, I always give our guest the opportunity to share one message in the nick of time. Someone is listening and needs to be encouraged and inspired, a 40-year-old woman. What would you tell her?
I would tell her, and it sounds cliche, but it's so true, that it's never too late. If you are thinking about it, do it. Simple as that.
If you're thinking about it, do it. Well, you've encouraged me. I know that. Few things I need to pick my feet up, scroll to the end first, and then work my way back, right?
Exactly. So you have a path.
Yes. Quin, thank you so much. Audience, rally behind Quin Brewington and her work that she is doing. Again, SisterLadyGirl.com. You will not this will not be your last time hearing about her on this platform. Trust me. But make sure you go and follow her. Want to thank each and every one of you for giving us your head and your heart. We've now given you some tools to put into your hand to take action. Don't forget, you possess everything already to be successful. It's just a matter of you defining success, not as the world, but as you define it, and then go out and make magic happen. Want to thank KSTL 690 Jubilee AM for your love and your sponsorship. Sparkman Pathway to Careers, thank you. Covenant Exchange LLC, thank you. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and we thank you for tuning in for another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time.